Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. Welcome to today's Scrum Pulse, focused on product ownership with professional Scrum Trainer Joshua Partogi. I'm Lindsay Vallecina, and I'll be your moderator today. I have a few housekeeping items before we dive into the content. So Joshua, next slide, please. Okay, so just some quick housekeeping items before we get started. As you've probably already noticed, your microphones have been muted. They'll be muted throughout the webinar. However, we encourage you to ask questions throughout. Please use the question box or chat box as indicated in this slide, and I will be moderating the questions, and we'll have a Q&A session once we're through the presentation. Next slide. Okay, so just real quick info about Scrum.org. If you're not familiar with us, we were founded by Ken Schwaber, one of the co-creators of Scrum. We offer Scrum training and certification. We have about 300 professional Scrum trainers globally. Our classes are geared toward the roles in Scrum and also other topics, including leadership, scaling with Nexus, using Scrum with Kanban as a complementary practice. We also have our PSU class, which teaches how to integrate UX designers into Scrum. With that, I will turn it over to Joshua. If you want to go ahead and introduce yourself.
All right, good morning, everybody. Good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be. So it's a beautiful morning right now in Perth. I'm based in Perth, Australia. I'm a Scrum.org professional Scrum trainer. I've been doing this for a while. I'm really passionate about, most importantly, improving the way people work. And besides Scrum, I'm also using coactive coaching principles to help organizations get the most. And as some of you already know, I also vlog occasionally on YouTube. So if you haven't already subscribed, go subscribe. And I've got a lot of contents that's relevant for you to help you improve the way you work at your workplace. So let's start today's webinar. So before we talk about product ownership, I want to set the stage first, because there are a lot of misconceptions about the definition of product owner out there. So I want to set the stage so that we have the same understandings, especially during the Q&A. So there is this really interesting blog written by Don McGrail and Ralph Jochum. And this is like one of the core materials that we use in our professional Scrum product owner classes. So basically, if I summarize it, there are several types of product owners. There's the scribe ones. These are the ones who are mostly concerned or focused with requirements engineering, maintaining user stories, like in the product backlog tools like Jira or Azure DevOps and so forth. And there's the last one. I'm just going to skip until the last one, are what we call the entrepreneur product owners. So my personal perspective, the real product owners are the one that's entrepreneurial. And some of the words that we use, like in the Scrum.org community, we often also call that the real product owners as the CEO of the product. So the accountability of product owner is really, really big, and it's not easy. So throughout this webinar, when I'm saying product owner, it's referring to this CEO of product or entrepreneurial product owner. So it's not referring to the scribe types of product owners or proxies and so forth. So there are a lot of myths currently in the market about the product owner role. And throughout my engagement with customers, the the role of product owner has been watered down. It has been kind of undermined. In some cases, the product owner becomes just like a requirements engineer. In some cases, like organizations put another layer on top of the product owner, and usually it's called the product manager. So the product manager becomes like sort of like the boss for the product owner. And product owner is very limited, so they don't really own the product. Their title might be product owner, but they don't really have ownership of the product. So what I really like about Scrum.org perspective, semantically, the term owner means like they have full ownership, and the product owner should be like the one with the highest authority. So that's like a Scrum.org perspective. And product owners are entrepreneurial, and they spend the majority of their time at strategic level rather than at tactical level, just managing product backlog. So these are the myths and facts that I often see in the market and when I get into clients during engagements. So the common myths, these myths came from because people read Scrum Guide, and in Scrum Guide, like the role of product owner, basically to summarize, is just to like attend the Scrum events, and then plan the sprint, collaborate with the development team, and manage the product backlog. So people, when they read Scrum Guide, they said, wow, this is like a very tactical work. And a lot of organizations, based on this understanding, based on this interpretation, they map the product owner role to a scribe or a requirements engineer. And usually, typically, it's the business analyst, because they said, oh, this is like what business analysts usually do. So they map the role of product owner to business analyst. So there's nothing wrong with that. But what I'm trying to say here is the role of product owner is not only tactical. So Scrum Guide, what we have to understand is it's a framework. It gives you the bare minimum to start improving the agility of your organization. So Scrum Guide does not tell you all of the strategic activities that product owner needs to do. So I often see like product owner is like literally like an owner of a company. So like they're the owner of the product. They're responsible to ensure that this product is successful in the market. And Scrum Guide does not tell you that these kind of activities like marketing and sales, how to do release strategy. In fact, Scrum Guide doesn't tell you about product visioning, legal partnership. In fact, the product owner is responsible for the profit and loss. Because if Scrum Guide defines all of these strategic activities, then Scrum will become another methodology, right? So product owner accountability is not only at a tactical level. So product owner is the owner of the product, is the CEO of the product. They're responsible to ensure that the product they own is successful in the market. And the tactical level activities defined in Scrum Guide, of course, is not enough. And the organization need to discover what are the strategic activities that product owners need to do. So from my experience, these type of product owners who really understand that their role is at strategic level, they're the CEO of the product, like they would spend 80% of their time at strategic level, and a lot of the tactical activities would be outsourced, as I kind of say it, to the development team. And in fact, a lot of people are surprised about this. There is a line in Scrum Guide that says product owner may do all of the above activities or ask the development to do it. And a lot of great product owners that I have worked with, they would spend 80% of their time and they would trust the development team on the tactical level activities. So when there is one team, there is one product owner, and a lot of people misinterpret this. So what if like in a large-scale organization, I have multiple development teams. Surely the one product owner is not enough. But the logic that people apply in the market is, oh, let's put another layer on top of the product owner. And what we mostly seen in the market is this role is typically called as the product manager. So in Scrum Guide, the context, again, it's a single team, one product owner, one development team developing one product. There is another guide. This is like extension of Scrum Guide. Scrum.org have the Nexus guide. It gives you guidance on how one product owners work with multiple teams. So as I said in the beginning, Scrum.org perspective is product owner should be like the highest authority. So even though there are multiple teams, there's still one product owner. So if we scale, the product owner goes to the top. Just like when you have a company, let's say you start your own startup company, like there's probably only a few staff. But as the company grows, as the owner of the company, you don't put a manager, you don't hire a manager to be on top of the company owner. So the same logic applies. The same logic applies when we scale. There is a vacuum in the middle. So the product owner goes in the top, there's a vacuum in the middle. And a lot of question that I get from my clients is, so who will create these requirements, these user stories, these product backlog items for the development team? Surely one product owner can't do all of that by themselves. So you fill in the vacuum in the middle rather than putting another layer on top. I personally prefer call these role as product manager. Just like if we have a company, we fill in a managers in between rather than putting the manager on top of the company owner. So this will be the context of the webinar. So product owner is on top. As the organization scales, we fill in the vacuum in the middle rather than putting another layer on top of the product owner. So this is just a question for all of you, just to kind of drive our conversation during Q&A. So as the product owner is really the owner of the product and has a high authority over the product, what would be your hurdles to really have full ownership over the product? Because a lot of times when I get into customers, there's a lot of people, their title is product owners, but they don't really own the product. So if you're one of those person, what would be like your hurdles? Some of the common ones that I have seen is there's lack of Scrum Masters in the organization with strong leadership at the organization. So the Scrum Masters only play at the team level, but does not really make systemic changes at the organization level. So the Scrum Master does not do coaching, mentoring, and all of those things at the organization level, at the senior management level. Another common reason that I have found is trust from the management, especially like in large enterprise. The management would say, oh, like, how can I trust you like to take ownership of the product? Like, what would be your capability like to take full ownership of the product? So this is quite common, what I've seen in my part of the world, especially in large enterprises. But a lot of times when I dig deeper, it's also because the product owner does not really have the capability to take full ownership of the product. And if I go back to my previous slides in the beginning, it's because a lot of times the role of product owner is just mapped to the business analyst or requirements engineer. So this is causing the senior management to have a lack of trust for the product owner to take full ownership of the product. So throughout this webinar, so I've set the stage. The perspective that I will be using is the Scrum Master. So I'm not a product owner. I've worked with a lot of product owners. I empowered them to take full ownership of the product, to be that kind of CEO of the product. So this is not from the perspective of a product owner. I'm not a product owner, I'm a Scrum Master. So these are the perspective from a Scrum Master, how me as a Scrum Master leverage the role of product owners in the organization. So the 3V for product owners talks about value, vision, validation. And this is really important. This is a huge difference. I've also seen a lot of product owners come from like a project management background, and the iron triangle is on time, on scope, and on resources. But product owners focus on value, because a lot of product that is delivered on time, on scope, and on resources are not necessarily valuable in the market. And product owner, they don't only focus on short-term wins. If we see that the life cycle of a project is shorter than a product, so product owner need to have a long-term vision to sustain the product as long as possible in the market. And as I said, I've worked with some product owners with project management background, and a lot of times their goal is to try to predict, try to get like predictability up front. There's a lot of heavy planning up front, and the concept of validation experimentation a lot of times for project managers doesn't make sense. Like, oh, that's not project management, we should get it right from the beginning, we should do a lot of plannings up front. But product owners are different. Product owners are not afraid to test their own assumption and to admit they may be wrong. This is quite different, like from traditional kind of mindset where you're looking for predictability upfront through rigorous planning. As a product owner is the entrepreneur, so they're not afraid to go to the unknown and admit they might be wrong in the future. So I've used this tool, Product Strategy Canvas. You can download it for free from that URL, agilitypath.com.au. That's my website / tools. So I'm going to kind of say to all of you that this canvas was inspired, kudos to Jeff Gothel's Lean UX canvas. When I first saw the Lean UX canvas, I was like, wow, this is really good, but it's too UX oriented. I picked up some of the ideas and tried to kind of make it more relevant for product owners. So in the past, I've used other canvas like the business model canvas, but it wasn't as powerful because it only scratched the surface on the business model. So I'm going to explain how I use this product strategy canvas to help product owners to achieve that vision, value, and validation. So first, let's talk about vision. So when talking about vision in a large enterprise, usually the person who has the higher level vision is at the senior management level. So I have helped product owners like to collaborate with senior management and sit together and talk about the vision of the product, because the product owner has the product vision, but usually at the higher level, like there is a business strategy, there is a company vision, and usually that's kind of driven by the senior management, the C-level, the CXO, the CEO. According to Project Management Institute, the definition of a project is temporary, and it has defined beginning and end in time. So the product lifecycle is much longer, and I would say it's really fuzzy. The end of project lifecycle usually is defined up front. So we're going to finish at this time, and so forth. But the product lifecycle, we don't really know when the product lifecycle is going to end. So the end of product lifecycle ends when nobody in the market wants to use your product any longer, and nobody can ever predict when that will ever happen. So as I said, the product owner accountability is so broad. The product owner needs to have like a long-term vision, not only like 6 months vision or 1 year vision, perhaps like up to like 5 years vision. Around last year, I went to Japan and visit Nissan. And what's so interesting is their electric vehicle, that vision already like started like since 20 years ago, and it just recently become a hype and released to the market. So like product owners need to have like a vision that long, and that project mindset may not really be relevant for product owners, because you cannot predict what's going to happen in another 5 years, in another 10 years, in another 20 years. So product owners need to have like a long-term vision. And the alignment is one of the challenge for a lot of product owners to take product ownership. The first alignment, I call it the vertical alignment, like from the senior management down to the product owners and down to the development team. So product owners need to align from the top, from the senior management, and bring that vision down below up to the development team. And why is this important for the product owner to share the vision to the development team? Because I've seen that a lot of product owners who is not visionary, who cannot like speak about the vision to the development team, the product owners are stuck at the tactical level. They become the requirements engineer, managing that backlog, writing detailed user stories. So by being able to talk about the vision to the development team, from what I have seen, the development team can take over some of that tactical stuff for you, so that you as a product owner can just focus at the strategic level. But you need to kind of work together, align it from the top, ask the senior management, work with the senior management, and kind of trickle down the high level vision so that you can bring it down to the development team. So in the product strategy canvas, box number 1 is business strategy, and at the middle layer, box number 5 talks about the objective key result. So above sprint goals is not defined by Scrum Guide, but if you as a product owner can like get the higher level vision or goals above sprint goals, then it will be so much easier for you to create outcome-driven sprint goals. A lot of product owners I've seen, they just come up with output-driven like sprint goals. Oh, do this features, hit this amount of velocity. So Scrum Guide doesn't talk about anything above sprint goal. So as a product owner, work with the senior management and look at the highest level. What is the business strategy? And then you can trickle it down to objective key results. Then you can create a really good sprint goals. And when you're goal driven, you can focus on strategy and let the team work out on the tactical level works. So this is one of a sample of a business strategy of a company that I've worked with. So the senior management sit down together with the product owner in the same room. So there was the CFO, Chief Financial Officer, there was the CEO, there was a CTO, there's also the Chief Marketing Officer. All of the C-levels sit in one room with all of the product owners. And the C-levels said that this is what we have been observing. So they're quite a traditional company. So the senior management observe a problem, and that problem is causing the companies to lose profits. They're no longer the market leaders. So around 5 years ago, they were the market leader. They were disruptive. So what I often like to say, like, this is disruptors who became disrupted by another competitor. So 5 years ago, they were disruptors, but now they're disrupted again. So what I like, if you can see, like on the bottom part here, there is like success criteria, and the success criteria are metrics. So this is strategy. So the senior management doesn't say, oh, don't do this project, create this application, or create this amount of features. So the senior management just talk about problems. The senior management share the problems. By sharing problems, the product owner can be creative and also own, they have more ownership towards the solution to that problem. So the senior management doesn't talk about solution at all, doesn't talk about the project that the product owner needs to kind of run. So this is the problem, and it's causing our profit to become unstable. And which is interesting, the senior management said, if this keeps happening, you may not be working with us in this company for another 6 months. So this is something that we have to change. And there are some success criteria in forms of metrics. So if we achieve these metrics, we know we are back in the game. So as you can see, the business strategy doesn't talk about a solution. And I'm also inspired by Jeff Gottholf and Josh Seiden on how to formulate this business strategy. And I use it with my customers a lot these days. So if there is lack of clear vision from the development team, if from the top just talks about solution, projects, features, what I've seen at the development team level, they're not really inspired. Like I often say, they just become like a feature factory. They just deliver features over features. So so from that business strategy, and as I said, the business strategy is very metric driven, and it should be metric driven, and it shouldn't tell what features or project that the product owner needs to do. So as a product owner, now you can bring those business strategy into a more powerful sprint goal, and your sprint goal becomes more outcome driven rather than output driven. So that's our business strategy. So teams, you can say that our objective for this sprint, let's improve the number of app download, for example, by 5% on App Store. If we can achieve that sprint goal, however you do it, like whatever features you deliver, we are getting closer to the business strategy. So as a product owner, as you focus more on goals, strategy, you also like not only you're empowering the team to do the tactical work and be creative on what features they develop, the development team will also have more ownership towards the solution. But you can't have this kind of outcome-driven sprint goals if you don't know like what's the higher level vision or strategy that you need to achieve. Another alignment, I call it also, that's like the first problems is vertical alignment. Another problems is that I've seen is horizontal alignment. And this happens quite a lot, especially in very siloed functional organization, and usually still using like that traditional KPI, like the finance department get like a certain KPI, IT gets certain KPI, marketing gets certain KPI. They focus on the KPIs, but they're not really aligned to each other, and sometimes like they conflict with each other. So when I say multiple product owners here in this context, it's still one product owner, one product. So this is the context of a company that have multiple products. So multiple products, multiple product owners. Think of like companies like Google or Microsoft that have a portfolio of products, but that single product is still one product owner. This is not like one product, multiple product owners, still one product, one product owner, and the company have multiple portfolio of products.
So Joshua, so how would, in that context, how would you define a product then?
Yes, that's really interesting. From professional Scrum product owner context, and this is also written in Don McGurl's and Ralph Jocham's book. Product is whatever that your customer is buying from you, whatever your customer is getting value out of you. So the product is, I often say that the product is not the system. The product is not the application or the software. Let's take an example. Let's say an insurance company. The insurance company, the product is not the software or the system. The product for insurance company, of course, is the insurance product. For a bank, the product might be a home loan, credit card. So basically here, the definition of a product is whatever your customer is purchasing or getting value out of you. The software might be the channel for your products. Yeah.
Great. Awesome. Thanks for that explanation.
Thank you for the question. Oops. So multiple product owners can align at the objective key result level. And even though there are multiple product owners, they're still aligned to achieve the high level business strategy. So this is one of the workshop that I facilitated. I gather like all of the product owners in one room. And as I said, the context of a product is whatever that your customer is getting from you. So there's the product owner for credit card in this context, e-commerce, goods loan, home loan. So this is the OKR planning activities, and they can go around the room and see what other product owners OKR is, and they sometimes they make a trade-off, they make a bargain. Hey, I need something from you. Like, would you be able to kind of put this like in your OKR? So even though there's trade-off, they make bargains. They know they're working for the common goal to achieve the business strategy that was defined by the senior management. And at this activity, in fact, so in this scenario, the C-levels was there. So the CEO was not in the frame, but there was the CFO's chief marketing officer. There was the chief risk officer. So the product owners also need to present their OKRs. And in this level, the C-levels collaborate with the product owners and see whether the OKRs from the product owners really help the company achieve the business strategy. So OKRs I found is a good tools for product owners to be aligned with other product owners in the company, especially if you work in an enterprise where the company have a portfolio of a product. So work with the Scrum Master to facilitate this kind of events. Work with your Scrum Master to kind of, how can I say, approach the senior management for these events to be done. I personally prefer the Scrum Master to kind of do engagement within the organization, because if the product owners are doing this stuff, the product owners are not focused. I personally prefer the product owner focus on the business, on the product, profit, entrepreneurship, and so forth. But for the people engagement to make these kind of things happen, I personally like Scrum Masters to do that. So in this case, me as a Scrum Master are the one kind of driving this. And not only that, create regular review cadence. So sprint is like your bare minimum cadence to review your goals. And at a high level, you can create other cadence and see how far are you to get closer to the high level business strategy. So bear in mind, this is not that traditional Gantt chart where you just review how many features you deliver. The purpose of the review cadences is to see how far are you, how close are you towards meeting the business strategy. And bear in mind, during the review cadences, focus on the outcome metrics rather than the number of features. Because otherwise you might fall in the trap of that project thinking again. So work with the Scrum Master. So work with the Scrum Master to create these regular review cadences. So in one of my client based in Malaysia, the CEO would attend the sprint review. And during sprint review, the product owner would present metrics rather than the features the team have delivered. So talk about metrics during these regular review cadences. And then define value together and move away from time, budget, and scope mindset. So Scrum.org has a really nice paper, and I've been using it a lot with my client, the evidence-based management. So go check out the website scrum.org/EBM. So there is one key value areas called current values. Define these metrics together with the senior management. What is value? What does value mean to us? Every organization defines value differently. So if I go back to the product strategy canvas, this would be in box number 2. So usually when I facilitate this workshop for product strategy canvas, I would ask the senior management and product owner to define all of the important value metrics. And we use this for tracking the current value areas. Scrum.org, EBM, at bare minimum, define these 5 current value metrics, but it doesn't mean that you just stop there. Value means differently. If there's a value metrics that's not defined in the Scrum.org EBM paper, work together with the senior management to define what's value. There's other value metrics that might be relevant for you. Here are some other value metrics. And of course, your industry are different, your product contexts are different. Work together, what does value mean? So don't just stop at the Scrum.org EBM current value metrics. Define your own.
This is great, Joshua. I just so everybody knows, I just dropped a link to the EBM guide in the chat, so everyone can go ahead and check that out.
Yep. I also, when you read the Scrum.org EBM guide, I found that a lot of people, especially in trainings, like they cannot really visualize how does this metrics look like. So I've provided a sample dashboard. It's available on Google Sheet. If you go to this website, agilitypath.com.au/tools, you'll be directed to Google Sheet to be able to view the sample dashboard. Just put your email and then I'll give you access. I will not spam you or like send you like marketing emails or so forth. In a real context, you want to make your own EBM dashboard. And these metrics come from a lot of places. For example, the current value metrics, you may need to talk with the finance people. employee satisfaction metrics, you may need to talk to HR. And you can work with the business intelligence people to create this dashboard for you, and use this as a driving conversation, present these EBM metrics during sprint review. So during sprint review, rather than talking about velocity or number of features, talk about EBM metrics. How far are we towards meeting our business strategy? What else do we need so that we can achieve the business strategy that we have defined? So value metrics, I found, it's very enticing for senior management. So if you talk about features delivered, a lot of senior management, they're not really interested with that. But what really get them excited is like value metrics. So how much money are we making this sprint? How much profit are we making this sprint? How much new users are we creating this sprint? Talk about these metrics during sprint review. Move away from velocity-driven sprint review to like value metrics-driven sprint review. And you can use EBM to track why you're not getting the value that you expected. So one of my client here in Western Australia, an energy company, the senior management said, oh, how come our conversion rate is really low? So I went into the company, okay, let's look at the whole metrics that you've got. And the conversion rate is kind of impacting the revenue per employee. And we can go down like one step behind, like using the EBM metrics. And it turns out the mean time to value is really slow. And the other reason is they're not releasing as frequently as they should be. So they're using Scrum, but they can't even like release production ready product every sprint. So the release frequency is really low. And when I look back again, take one step behind and look at the metrics under ability to innovate, it turns out that this metric is available in EBM guide, that the development team are context switching a lot. So they are doing other things other than developing new features in the product. And it turns out the development team need to support the product in production. There's a lot of support calls. There's a lot of production incidents. So they need to do a lot of bug fixing, defects fixing, while on this, at the same time, they need to develop new features for the product. And it turns out when I dig deeper, there is a technical debt in the product. So you can use the EBM to kind of track why you're not getting the value you expected as a product owner, and you'll be able to see how much value you should be getting like every sprint, and track this every sprint. So a lot of product owners have found they're focused on the current value metrics, but a lot of product owners do not really track these metrics. As you've seen on the previous slide, the metrics in ability to innovate can really impact the metrics under current value. So a lot of product owners argue, well, that's like not my stuff. That should be like development team stuff. Like that metric seems to be technical. But as a product owner, you need to care. You need to care about the metrics under ability to innovate, because I often say to product owners, the root cause to your problem, why you're not getting the value that you're expecting, you can view it, you can interpret it from the metrics under the ability to innovate. So a lot of people ask me, well, can I just look at like these EBM partially? I will just like say, no, you have to look the whole metrics holistically. You need to track all 4 key value areas, because otherwise you're not getting like the overall picture of your current situation. So do not just look at the EBM metrics partially, look at it holistically. And last, related with value, is the third V is validation. Product owners needs to have that experimenter mindset. I think Chris Lucasen and Robin Sherman created a blog series on product owner stances, and one of the stances is product owner should be that experimenter. And why? Why do we need to create experiments? Because there's a lot of failed products already in the market. And the cost of failure is really huge. I've seen a lot of companies, like, they waste a lot of money for failed products. So you don't want to end on that kind of spectrum. Now, a lot of product owners are not releasing every sprint. They still have this kind of project mindset. Oh, let's release it another 6 months. But if you're not releasing, you're not leveraging a sprint, Scrum, you're not releasing every sprint, how do you know it's going to be valuable? You don't want to end up, oh, let's release it another 6 months, and then just found out that 6 months later, nobody really want your product. It happens even to big companies. If you can see, these products are made by Microsoft, Google's, like, they're really big, and yet products still fail even from big companies. So work with the development team, especially regarding technical practices. A lot of times the development team cannot deliver more frequently because there's no technical practices. One of my clients in Malaysia, they send the whole development team to Scrum.org Professional Scrum Developer course and learn about these technical practices. So product owner can create release strategy. There's a lot of tools that enables product owner to deliver more frequently, like feature flagging, blue-green deployment, canary release, etc. So work with your development team. As the product owner is the CEO of the product, if your team does not have the capability, use the budget that you have to train them. Or if you have an awesome Scrum Master, you can have the Scrum Master mentor and train the team on technical practices. Another strategy for product owners, this is a blog written by Jeff Gottholf. Pool the UX and developers to work together in the sprint, the same sprint, to validate, remove that silo. One of my clients, an insurance company here based in Western Australia, they send, like, the UX and the developers together, like, in the same training to Scrum.org Professional Scrum with UX. And even developers will find value to know UX practices and no design sprint up front, because that's just causing more problems. And we learned a lot in the Scrum.org PSU class about strategies, how UX and developers can work together in the same sprint to validate assumptions. You can create small experiments. There is this really nice blog by Gift Constable. There's levels of experiments that you can run together, UX and developers. By running experiments, I often say that you're reducing risk to deliver the wrong product. As I said in the beginning, the project mindset is to go on budget, on resources. But why don't you prove to senior management that you can actually go under budget? Because with Scrum, you can literally go under budget. And in fact, in some companies that I work with, this becomes like the KPI for product owners. Can you go under budget? And if you release earlier, if you run experiments, you can literally go under budget and not waste that budget that is been given to you. Create hypothesis as a product owner rather than fixing all requirements. So in the product strategy canvas, like all of the backlogs from box number 9, if the perceived value is high and the risk that people may not want your product is high, make it as a hypothesis. So this is a sample of a hypothesis. So the blanks are just from the boxes from the product strategy canvas. So in this case, we currently believe that if we deliver this artificial intelligence feature, we can increase 5% of the profit. And the most important part is the bottom part. You need a success criteria. As I said in the beginning, if you're outcome driven, you're focused in the changing behavior of customers and track how will the features you deliver really impact the value metrics. So from sprint to sprint, rather than fixing requirements, you have that mentality as a product owner, that these are just our assumptions, and we are going to use the sprint as an engine to validate our assumptions. By having sprints, we're reducing the risk of delivering the wrong features, the wrong products. And lastly, this was interesting, just to close this about product owner. One of my clients, who's really pedantic about the term owner, the company created a career path for product owner. As the product owner is the owner of the product, is the CEO of the product, so the product owner should be the highest. So they make it really tough for people to be product owners. They don't just map someone to be product owner. So usually fresh graduates, when they enter the company, they don't like become product owner immediately. So the first level of in the career path, they become associate product manager first. And these are the people who just manage like user stories, create detailed requirements for the development team. So as time progresses, if they can prove to the senior management that they can improve or increase the product's P&L, those are the type of people who become the product owner or the CEO of the product, which is kind of interesting. I was really inspired by this client because they in fact created a career path, and product owner is a really heavy duty job. It's a big responsibility. Not everybody can be a product owner. So that is all from me, Lindsay.
Fantastic. Thank you, Joshua. We do have quite a few questions here from the audience. Probably only going to have time for one or two of them, but keep them coming in because Joshua can answer these offline as well. So feel free to type your questions in and I'll make sure that they're routed to Joshua after the webinar. So this question comes in from Chris, and he is saying that they have one really large software product. Should they have one product owner for a single product with millions of users, or is there a point that they should consider feature product owners?
Yes. So if we're looking at this slide, I'm really inspired. I'm using this as a guideline, like for my future conversation. And also from Scrum.org perspective, there's only one product owner. If we go back to the initial slide in the beginning, call it something else. Maybe product manager, requirements engineer. Otherwise, it's just confusing for people. How come there's like multiple owners? Like if there are like a conflict of priorities, who make the last decision? So I talked to Ken Schwaber about this. Why does he call it product owner? Because the owner is the single decision maker when there is a bottlenecks. So there's still one product owners. I do acknowledge you may need like something in the middle to manage like a low level stuff. Call it something else, because otherwise it's confusing people. Maybe product manager, because manager should be below the owner. But still one product owner, even though the software is huge.
Okay, great.
And go read the Nexus guide. How does one product owner work with multiple teams in a large scale products?
Okay, thanks. Going through these here. I think we have time for one or two more. Okay. What do you advise if the partner you're developing for does not want an incremental release? They want full product before they will try it with their users. So how do you, I guess the question here is kind of how would you suggest they help convince their partner to go the Scrum approach rather than the waterfall approach?
So I've worked with this type of product owner. So what the product, because the product owner has like a full kind of authority over this, making decisions. So what the product owner did was the product owner put in the backlog to create a system that mimics the system from the partner. So they're removing that dependencies from partners. So the product owner spent three sprints to create like a system that is used by their development team, and this system mimics the system of the partners. So if you're the CEO of the product, if you're that kind of product owner, you would go that far. But if the product owners are not really the CEO of the product, probably are not allowed, in fact, by a lot of times by the senior management to do that. Again, because these real product owners are like entrepreneurs, they would go that far. They're like a hustler. What I often say is like there's nothing that can stop them, but that's only if they're like the real product owners, the CEO of the product. Yeah, if you're the CEO of the product, you can spend, that's what I've seen, spend budget like for the development team to create a system that mimics the system of a partner.
Okay, great. So on the current slide, we have time for this one last question. Gaurav is asking, so where does the Scrum Master role fall in this slide?
Oh, as I said in the beginning, this is all, where was it? This is all from a Scrum Master perspective. So what I'm doing is, as I'm talking from the Scrum Master perspective. Is I'm the one coaching the product owners. I'm the one influencing the senior management.
You froze, so I'm gonna shut your camera off. I did that earlier. Joshua?
Who mentor the development team on technical practices.
Joshua, can you repeat yourself? We lost your audio when you turned your camera back on. So we're gonna keep it off.
Environments of product owners can leverage themselves to become the CEO of the product.
Joshua, can you repeat that one last time because you were cut off?
Really?
Yes.
Hang on a second.
If you could just explain your perspective, how you were presenting through the perspective of the Scrum Master again, that would be good.
Yes. So throughout this webinar, it's me as a Scrum Master coaching the product owners on using the strategy canvas, coaching the product owners how to use the EBM metrics, coaching the senior management, influence the senior management to sit down together with product owners to define the business strategy, approach, influence the other product owners to collaborate on defining the OKRs. It's me coaching the development team on technical practices, DevOps practices, so product owners can release early and often every sprint. it's from the perspective of me coaching the UX to sit together with development team in the same sprint. So this is all Scrum Masters creating environments for product owners to thrive.
Perfect. Thank you. I think that clears that up. So I want to be conscious of everyone's time. So we are at the end of the hour here. So I would like to thank you, Joshua, for coming today and being our presenter. Please continue your learning on the Scrum.org website. We have learning paths available and other resources as well, including our blogs, videos, and our forums. So please check those out when you have some time. And thank you, everyone. And I hope everyone has a great day. And thanks again, Joshua.
Thank you.
Goodbye, everybody.